Okay. So when you open up Qualtrics, you can see all my old surveys, but typically all you're going to be doing is just creating a new project. So you can see it up here. I've got lots of surveys in here, but we're just going to start from scratch and create a new project. And it will give you a bunch of options. Typically, I just start with a survey. So just a blank survey is what I like. I don't want them to give me anything, because usually what they have is for marketing or for corporate research or something like that, and that's not really what we're doing. As you click through, it's going to ask you a couple of prompts. So for this one, we just need to name it. So you're naming your survey. We could call this the trekking survey or something, but I'm just going to use this as an illustration survey. I think I already have one in there, so I'll call it illustration 2. And you can see in the dropdown, it's going to give you options to import or use existing surveys. You can copy an existing survey, different things like that. Again, I'm just using a blank one. So we'll go ahead and create this. And then this is kind of your start screen. And I know there's a lot on there, but it's once you get the pieces, it's really not that bad. So it kind of flows from like the most stuff you can do to specifics and then to the actual questions over here. So it puts in just kind of your very first question. And of course, you can change everything about this question. So we'll kind of walk through what these questions are, and let's just do a pretend question. Let's see, what's your favorite color? All right, so we've got our first question in. You can, of course, change the name of the question. By default, it uses Q. So Q and then 1, 2, 3, etc. You could change this to whatever you want. So you can change the name of your question, and then you can write in your question choices. Before I talk about adding question choices, right over here, it gives you the option for how many choices. So you'll see down here, it actually doesn't give you that option. So as you click in, you can add as many choices as you want or subtract the choices. So it's a pretty easy one here. I'll create another question here in a second that allows us to use this option, which is the suggested choices. But of course, you can just write in your colors. So we can put these in. And we have basically created our first question. That's it. It's not that hard. Couple of other things to note on this left-hand side. If this is just a multiple choice question where you're choosing one response option, then you just set this right here, allow one answer. If it was something where you wanted them to have multiple answers, because the question frame, like the way that it's structured is almost exactly the same, it's just a radio button option over here. And when you do click that, you'll see that these change to boxes instead of circles. So circles if it's one answer, boxes if it's two, because it's going to get a check mark. Lots of formatting options down here. So you can do a list or a drop down or a select box. So if you wanted to do a drop down, typically in survey construction, if you have lots of options like country, right? So if we have all 200 or something countries listed, you don't want to have that as a list. You want to do that as a drop down. So that's an option there where you can just set it as a drop down. Your alignment, you can switch that to horizontal. So we could switch that to horizontal alignment. All of these are options over here. And, sorry. My browser just updated something and wanted to do that. Okay. You can also make this a required question. So that is going to be contingent upon how you're thinking about questions and what your ethics review requires, right? Some ethics review boards basically say that you can't require people to answer questions. I typically try and stay away from requiring people to answer questions unless it's a question that is a requirement for branching. So if I've got branching built in, those are the ones where I'm like, actually, I really need you to answer this question. So you can turn that on and off and just have a forced response here. And then we'll come back to the validation. You can set validation for specific questions. That's really useful if you're asking somebody to put in, say, their age. You can have it validate it so it's only numbers, right? So that's a very useful option as well for age. Couple of other things here when talking about just designing the survey, it sets them up in what are called blocks. So this is just a question inside the default question block. This is useful to think about in terms of just different sections of a survey. And there are reasons why you would want to create blocks or not create blocks. And that has to do with how the survey ends up presenting to the person who's taking the survey, to your respondents. So you could have, say, a demographics block, and then you could have, thinking about Peter's survey, like an immigration block. You could have a religion block. You could have a non-religion block, but you can set up different questions in the blocks. Couple of useful ways to think about the blocks. One, they are kind of thematic sections, but two, when we get to rearranging the order, it's very easy to drag an entire block and move it. So you can take the whole block and move it very quickly instead of moving questions between blocks. Moving questions between blocks is actually kind of a pain in the butt, but moving entire blocks is actually very easy. And then moving questions within a block is actually pretty easy too. But you can also set up the survey software to where, when you think about branching, if somebody answers a question in a previous block, it could skip an entire block. So thinking about like structuring your survey, it's very useful to think about the blocks and how those might play into what you want people to be answering. Super easy to add another block. So we could add another block, or to add another question, it's right here. So let's add another question and just show some of the question options here. When I click on this, that's the same as the one that we already did, which is a multiple choice question. Let's do a text entry question next, and we'll just show you what this looks like. So why is it your favorite color? So basic text entry. Over here, as far as options go, you can do single line, multiple lines, or an essay text box. Basically, that's giving people more space. So if you want a single line, this would be really useful for just like a 1 or 2 word response, a very short response. An essay text box is going to be much bigger. Here's the weird thing though, on the back end of Qualtrics, you don't see that you made it bigger. It'll only be bigger when you kind of go to preview it or when people are looking at it, but it actually doesn't change anything on the back end. So it stays basically the same as a single line, even though you actually said, no, I want this to be a big essay text box. That will actually be reflected in the survey, but you didn't really change anything here. Let's do one other, and then we'll show the validation on text entry here. So let's do age. And then we can talk about validation. So here, you can specify the kind of validation by content type. And here we can say we want number. So you could do date format or number, but this is a very useful way for those who've done surveys before, and you can actually specify the minimum, maximum, and decimals. But if you do put just like an open text box for age instead of age ranges or something like that, or even years, so if you ask, what year were you born, invariably when I do surveys, if I don't put this in the validation, somebody's going to write in something erroneous. So this is a very useful way to just be like, actually, nope, you got to answer the question correctly. So it can be very powerful. It's a very useful tool. So let's say that our minimum is going to be 18, right? And our maximum, we'll go with 110. Doesn't really matter. But now when somebody goes to try and take that survey, those are their options. So they have to put in a number, and that number has to be between 18 and 110. They can't put anything else in. The survey won't let them continue. So they don't technically have to answer the question, right? They could leave it blank because we didn't make it a required question, but now they actually do have to put in a very specific response. And so we're forcing them into that. And this is just really useful to make sure that you get good, clean data when you're doing this. All right, any questions to this point? They're pretty good. Am I going too fast?
Does it tell you if you answer it wrong, what you've done wrong?
Good question. Let me see. We can actually always preview, so we can pop up the preview. And let's see, because I shouldn't have to respond to anything else. So let's try putting in 18. Yeah. So I'm just typing in a word, and please enter a valid number.
Okay, what if you put, okay, so if you put 17, it'll get the same answer?
Should, yeah. Oh, there you go. The value must be
Uh-huh.
greater than or equal to 18.
Okay.
So
good.
it's pretty smart software, right? I mean, it's got a lot of this stuff figured out, and that's why it's fun to use. But okay, so yeah, we've got these kinds of options. Another question option. This is just text. So for your informed consent, that's what you would use. So literally, you're just putting in text. This is a placeholder for text. But your more common ones are something like a matrix table. So this is where you would have a bunch of Likert response options. So how much do you like these colors? And then you can put in your different options. And you can see when I wrote that, this is the software trying to be smart. You can always change this. When I did this, I hadn't actually selected these options down here. It picked those automatically thinking, oh, that might be what he's looking for as possible response options. But you can actually see over here, I'm gonna just scroll down, it's got suggested scale points built in, and you can choose from a whole bunch of these. So from disagree to agree, dissatisfied to satisfied, it has a whole bunch of those built in, and you can just select which ones you want. Literally, it's got, I don't know, like 30 or 40 options in here. And where this gets even, I mean, it's almost creepy how good it is at doing this. If you start changing the number of scale points, so the scale points are this side over here, it'll actually adjust those as well. So you see how I'm changing it to 7, 5. It's automatically putting in additional headers here for me. So I didn't actually do any of that. It just automatically, the software is like, oh, let's go ahead and do this, which is pretty cool. You can change that around, and then of course you can put in these colors. So let's do our colors again: red, blue, and green. And you can add this.
Question, Ryan.
Yeah, what's up?
When I'm doing this in Norwegian, I suppose I have to do it manually and write these options in Norwegian, because there's, yeah, this is probably just in English.
I would be surprised. I mean, they may not have Norwegian. I don't know that, right? You can actually change the language. So that's one of the settings that we can go to. Let me see if it's up here. No, I think it's over here, general settings. Let's see. These are all the languages that they have built in. And we're scrolling down.
Oh,
Norwegian,
yeah, there it
it's right
was.
there.
Great, that's great.
So yeah, they have, it's pretty robust, all the software options.
If Finnish exists there as well.
Finnish was in there as well?
Was it?
If Norwegian's there, Finnish will be there.
Let's see. Looking, Finnish, it's
Yes,
there.
right.
So they should have all of these options in there for all of these languages. So that should make it pretty easy for you. Again, just kind of constructing this, that it'll have those options. So yeah, it'll do obviously Likert type responses. Let's throw in, it has sliders. This can be really useful if you've got like a thermometer scale that ranges from 0 to 100. Those just get really long. And so a slider is a very useful tool to build here. You know, let's see, on a 100-point scale, rate these colors, something like that. And it automatically puts in my numbers for me once it realizes what I'm doing, and then red again. But then you can move those sliders. So it's got slider options in here. I'm not necessarily going to go through all of the question options, but there are quite a few options in here. So sliders, you can do forms, you can have people rank order stuff. So you could put a list of items, you know, something like values. This is pretty common for values. Rank order how much you value these different things. So you just put them in, and you can actually tell it to randomize those, and then people will be able to just drag and click and rank order those. It has a couple of other options here. Some of them get really esoteric that I've never even used some of these. Yeah, so most of this I haven't even used. They're pretty standard question options. But the most common ones that we will be using, of course, are like multiple choice text entry and a matrix table. And that's about it for what I've used. You've got some others in here that you could use too. Adding a block is super easy.
Ryan,
Yep.
I think the option would be here, but you have to show it to me that, you know, this thing about on a scale from 1 to 5, where 1 means none and 5 means very, rank how spiritual you are or something like that. where you don't want the Likert things named, because you don't want it that ordinal, you want it more continuous.
Mhm.
Do you have to write that in, or can you?
You can easily write that in. So at any point you can click on these and just change them, right?
Okay.
It might have some default options in here, but what I will often do if you're are thinking about something like how spiritual do you consider yourself, and you only want to put the two polar ends, right? So it's like a 10-point scale. So let's just go ahead and switch this to that. So let's make it a 10-point scale. You could put very spiritual here, right? And not at all spiritual. And then in the middle, you can change these. So this would be 2, 3, 4. You can just write them in.
Okay.
So
Okay.
all of that's totally customizable. Yeah.
I was
Other
just
questions
hoping
on
there
these?
was some way to do it automatically. So.
There might be, because if you hit the suggested scale points, it might. I mean, it probably is not going to have response options for something like how spiritual do you consider yourself, but it might have response options for just numbers, right? So it probably just has those built in as like 0 to 10 or 1 to 10 or something like that, and then you could go in and customize that when you want to.
Okay.
Other questions on building the actual questions at this point? No. 2 quick things, and then we'll kind of go into a little bit more of like the nuts and bolts here of like building this. I already did this earlier, but you can always click on the preview button. So next to it is publish, which we'll talk about here in a second. But at any point you can preview this, which I had already done once, but we'll just go ahead and do it again. And I like this feature. You can turn it off, but it'll actually show you what your survey is going to look like on a mobile device. So lots of people today take surveys on mobile devices, on their phones, on tablets, things like that. You can preview it on there and see exactly what it's going to look like. But this is what it would look like basically in a browser. And you can see exactly how it would work for somebody. Remember, I made this one of those big essay boxes. On the back end, it didn't look like anything. You know, it just was the single line, but here you can see what it looks like. We tested age already. Obviously, our scale points are messed up, but you can see exactly what it's going to look like. Alicia, did I see your hand go up? What's up?
Yeah, when you set up a block,
Yep.
so they're all going to appear on the same page, or it's in the, yeah.
You can set that. So when we get to the settings, like how it presents, you can set it up to do a question at a time. So you can have it do one question at a time, or you can have one block at a time. Those are all customizable. So how you want it to actually portray the survey, that's a different setting, but we'll get to that in a minute. But that's a great question, because it does give you that ability to just do like, oh, I want to do a whole block. And it's actually smart enough to know that if you have branching built in, what it'll do, if there's branching, say within a block, it'll show all the questions up to the question that determines where they go, and then it'll stop, right? So they don't get to see anything else until they answer the branching question, and then it'll advance to the next question. So it's smart enough to know, oh, there's branching in here, I can't show them that. So, but yeah, you can set to how it displays the survey, whether it's block at a time or question at a time. So we'll cover that. Okay, so that's the preview. Publish is when you want to go live. Now, you can publish at any time beforehand, because it's not like it's going to share this with the world. So you can literally just say, okay, I'm ready to publish this. It has this built-in feature, which you can totally ignore it if you want, but it basically does like an internal review to determine how good your survey is. And it'll hit things like, is your question wording too long? Do you have too many Likert type responses? Those take people a lot of time. Do you have too many questions? Is your wording a little bit too complicated? It'll actually give you a bunch of recommendations here for problems with your survey. You can ignore the recommendations. You can view the recommendations, it's up to you. And then when you hit publish, basically the key is now you have a live link. So you could send this to anybody, right? I'm going to delete this one, so it doesn't really matter. But now I have a live link. Unfortunately, those links, you know, they're not easy to understand. You could always change those to a short link or to a QR code if you need to, but that's your live link. So the survey is now activated. It's ready to start taking responses. Close that. And then what you'll see is as we go through and edit other things, it'll mention up here, hey, these changes have not gone live until you hit publish again. So we can go in and let's just come back to this one and add another choice. And you'll see once I put this in brown, because it's everybody's favorite color, that is not live until I hit publish. So we can continue to make edits, but until you've shared this with anybody, none of that really matters. Okay, other questions here? Anybody have questions at this point? No? So let's get into a couple of the other features. Right here is survey flow. This is not going to do a whole lot because we just have the one block, okay? This is where you can actually move your blocks around. So you could actually add a new block here. You can change some of that stuff, but this is really for moving blocks. This one is look and feel. So let's talk a little bit about that. It has, Qualtrics comes with some basic themes. You can change those. So if you wanted a mountain theme in the background, mountain valleys, things like this, you can customize those. I think there are additional themes that you could purchase, not that anybody's in the market to purchase those, but you can change the overall theme. And then we get into a couple of others that are a little bit more important. So this is layout, how it's going to look. So you can change kind of just the look of the actual questions. I like this one, right? The classic one. This is my preferred one. And then a couple of other settings. You can have a progress bar. So you can have a progress bar with text, without text, with verbose text, or you can have no progress bar at all, so they don't know how long it's taking. You can change the position on the progress bar. You can specify here how many questions per page you want. So you could say, I just want one question per page. You can put a header in. You can take a header off. You can put a footer in, all of that. And then your buttons for next and previous, those are all available in here as well. So those are all options. If you wanted to get really specific on the coloring, you have the option in here to specifically change colors. So your primary color, your secondary color, you can change your font, all of that's available in there. This one is just getting fancy. So if you wanted to, you could have slide transitions between the different pages. You don't have to do this, right? Right now, there's no transition between pages. A couple of other options there. If you wanted a logo in here, which I've done for some of my university surveys, you can do that. And then you can also change your background image. So this is just kind of the look and feel of the survey. Very basic, but you can customize everything in there. And then we get to some of the more powerful stuff. Sure, I'll change this. Options. So here's where we get to some of the, this is really important stuff. I mentioned the survey language. So we can do all of these different languages. And then there is the option, it's kind of technical back-end stuff, of having translations. So I'll talk about that maybe. You can specify the name for your survey. This is what'll display up here in their browser when they're taking the survey. So you could change this to favorite color survey, something like that. You can put in survey description. Typically, respondents don't need to see question numbers, but you can turn those on if you want. And this is that expert review option. You can turn that off as well if you don't want to do that. So some of these are important. These next ones get really important. Do you want a back button? This is a really important option when, say, you've got questions at the front end of the survey that might, like later questions might influence how they'd respond earlier in the survey. You can turn off the back button so they can't go back and change their responses. So that's a really important little feature that you just need to be aware of if you ever are doing a survey where you're like, okay, thinking about, say, the trekking survey, we don't hit any of the religion questions until the end. I don't really want them to go back and change their responses. So I'm going to leave the back button off. They can't go back and change things. There may be times where you want to allow that, and that's just an easy slider here, right? So you can turn that on and off. Do you want respondents to be able to pause in the middle of their survey and come back? That option is right here. So you can have them do that. You can turn on custom error messages. So you know how we tried that when we did the validation? You can make those custom, and then you can actually build in exactly what you want. Let's see, incomplete survey responses. So what happens if somebody doesn't quite finish the survey?
Yeah.
Oh, Inger, are you on the phone? We can hear her. Let me see if I can mute her.
She's on the phone.
She is.
Yeah.
Got it. I muted her. Okay,
Yeah.
we're good.
Ryan,
Yeah.
the back button,
Mm-hmm.
can you do that specifically, like there's parts of the survey you can go back to, like the previous question, but not more than that?
Only if they were on the same page, because I think if you turn that off, then it's off for the whole survey. But if you have multiple questions on the same page, obviously they could scroll back, right? So they could go up, but they can't go back and load a previous page if you say the back button is off, if that makes sense. On incomplete survey responses, do you want to record incomplete survey responses? This can be really good if you're trying to calculate if you've got response bias, but you can also just have them deleted. So it will, when you get the data, it'll actually show a progress indicator, which is actually really nice. So we can look at some of the data if we want to, but that's in there as well. There, you can set a timer for when it is considered incomplete. This is, you can set specific start and stop times, right? So when does the survey available? So when, and you could actually set that, right? So it's super easy to just set this. So here's my survey start time, and here's my survey expiration date. And then it's all preset. So when you go ahead and hit publish, if it's not within that time frame, no one can take the survey. It's just done.
Yeah, I have a related question to that, because if someone's taking a survey and they just get tired of it, they don't click any more buttons, just leave the website.
Right.
Those are surveys that you usually want to delete because the participant has told you that they don't want to participate.
Yeah.
So that, as opposed to someone who actually submits an incomplete survey.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So for something like that, if they close it, then the timer, so the built-in software timer, right, in Qualtrics will actually stop at that point. So it'll think, oh, they killed it. So you'll know exactly how long they were in there, and it will show their progress. So it will calculate for every person who takes the survey exactly what their progress is. So you'll know, but I don't know that you would know the difference. Well, you might, because if they get all the way through to the end and then click submit, it'll still say that they submitted the survey.
Yeah.
So it'll tell you this is a complete response, even though they may have left a whole bunch of questions unanswered. Okay. It will tell you they completed. Yeah.
An incomplete response is any response that wasn't submitted at the end.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Just thinking through that. That's a good question. Security. So this is your option of who gets to take it, right? Is this available to anyone on the internet, or is this invitation only? And if it's invitation only, then you've got all sorts of things that you have to kind of deal with in terms of distribution, which we'll get to in a minute. You can password protect it. This one, you can basically make it so only people who come from specific websites can take it. So this is the referral website URL where it's actually going to track, oh, where did they come from? So what link did they click on? Did they come from Facebook? Did they come from Reddit? Did they come from wherever? You can actually track that. Not that I'm saying we should. You can see that it's off by default. This one is preventing multiple submissions. So if you don't want people to retake the survey, this is called ballot box stuffing. Basically what it'll do is it'll put a cookie on their server or on their browser. So it'll put a cookie in and say, oh, you took this survey. And then when they go back to try and take it again, it'll say, you already took this survey, you don't get to take it again. Now, if somebody's smart and they know how to deal with cookies, right, they can get around that, but that's how it does that. So it'll actually put a little cookie on their browser to keep them from doing that again. This is to tell search engines not to include your survey in their search results. So you can have it searched. You can say, yeah, I want Google to find this, or you can turn that off. It's up to you. If you have people upload files, you probably want those secured, right? So we talked about doing this with the tracking survey of having them upload a photo. This just means that the only person who could access that is whoever has back-end access to the survey. Otherwise, other people could see this. And then this last one, it's kind of creepy, I'll be honest. Qualtrics has, like, built in, it will record every single respondent's IP address. It'll just automatically do that. So if you want to anonymize, like truly anonymize the responses, you got to hit that one right there. Otherwise, it's going to grab their IP address and it will do its best to get their latitude and longitude, which is even creepier. So you can leave that in or you can take it off. I've used that before to validate people's locations. So, we get like state. So we ask people, what state do you live in? And then we actually did a validation check to make sure that their IP address and latitude and longitude lined up with that. And sure enough, it's dead on. It's super creepy.
But what if you're using a VPN?
It would not be able to figure that out. Props to you for knowing what a VPN is. I know what those are. I know what they're used for too. So for all sorts of things, they can be used for good things too. But yes, it'll just get the IP address of the VPN server. I'm sure that's what it would get. A couple of other things, and then we'll get into some of the more advanced stuff. So post survey, you can create as many messages as you want. If you've got an account, you can set these up in basically what's called your library. So you can have specific questions that you store in your library. You can have specific messages that you store in there. So at the end of the survey, do you want just a simple message? It's got a default message that's in there, which is perfectly fine. Or do you want to send them a nice little email? So you could send them a thank you email. And you can see here, this is my library. So Ryan Cragen's library. And I could create a new message in there, or I may have, I don't think I have any messages in there, but those are all options in there. Shouldn't need most of this, except, let's see, yeah. If you do end up sending the invites to people, so if this is something where you have a list of people you want to send the survey to, you can do all of that through Qualtrics. We'll get to that with distributions. And then you could manage email triggers. So 1 week out, you could say, I want to send a follow-up to the people who haven't completed it. So that's built in here that you could actually change those options as well. All right, so those are some of the major options. We'll get into scoring quotas and translations in just a minute, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on those. Coming back to here, let's see, a couple of other options, and then we'll talk about these options up here. You'll see in here, we've got tools. You can randomize the questions, but let's look at the tools. It will auto number your questions for you. So you'll note that I did change this question number to color, right? So, but if you don't change any of those, and then say you're moving questions around, because that's how hard it is to move a question, right? So you can move the questions around literally by just dragging and dropping them in here. So it's not hard. If I were to move these questions around, you can have it auto renumber those questions for you. So if I changed Q1 to Q7 or something like that, and then I can just have it auto renumber all of them for me. You can set up recodes. So for any one of these, if I wanted to, I can set custom coding for each one of these options. So if I didn't want red to be 1, I wanted it to be 7 for some reason, I can actually set that as a specific recode option. That's right here. So recode values. You can also build in default choices. So if for some reason you wanted to have default choices, you could do that. And you can set up choice randomization. So if for some reason I didn't want these to always be in that order, I could set it to randomize those questions. So randomly flip the order of the choices. So that's an option as well. I'm going to skip some of those. Yeah. Down here, this one is one that it's kind of a pain. You can import and export survey questions and surveys. So I should probably show how to import a survey. It's done all the way at the very beginning, but you can also export the survey to Word. This is actually really problematic. So I'm not going to necessarily go through it. I'll show you, I'll send everybody a link to a video that I made with this. When you export one of these surveys to Word, let's say you're collaborating with people and you want to send it to them, it includes all sorts of HTML that messes up the formatting in Word. So a simple survey like this that has, I don't know, like 5 questions or something, it'll come out being 40 pages long. It's just nightmarishly messed up, and there's a way to actually fix that. So I created a little video. I finally figured out how to fix that. So I can share that with everybody if you've got questions and you want to do that. But those are kind of the main issues with the tools. Now we've got a couple of other things up here, and then we'll just turn to Q&A and we'll get to that. Actions, I've actually never even used this tab, but this is basically, you can create automated actions for, say, when somebody, let's say 15 people fill out the survey, you could get an email every time 15 people fill out the survey. So you can build automated things that happen when stuff happens with your survey. Or you could say at the end of every day, let's say you're running a survey and you want to know how many people filled out the survey that day. You could have a daily email sent to you saying, tell me how many people have taken this. I've never used it. It could be useful, but it's just not something that I've ever needed. Distributions is a tab that you will need. Basically, this is how you're going to distribute this to people. The most common one is right there, anonymous link. So that's where you can find your link to go ahead and distribute this to people. So if you're going to email this out, or if you're going to post this somewhere, that's the link that you need is right there. So that's the one that you're going to do. You can customize that link. So it does give you some options to change that. If you wanted to send out the emails, you're going to have to compose the email, put your emails in, and then this will actually send the emails out. You can do personal links, you can do text messages, you can post it on social media, it'll create those posts for you. This one could be really, really useful if you're, say, going door to door doing surveys and there are places where people won't have access to the internet. You can actually create an offline app that will store the survey on, say, a tablet. And then when they complete it, it'll just get stored on the tablet. And the next time you connect back to the internet, it'll sync all of that back up. So it's pretty nifty to do that. It'll generate QR codes for you automatically. So all of that's built in. And you can also pause response collection here. So those are all options here in distribution. And then of course, the part that we're all super excited about is data and analysis. I don't have any responses in here. So let me switch to another survey where I do. And I'll show you what this looks like with actual survey responses. So here's the trekking survey that I just did with my class. Yeah, so that shows you all the blocks, and we can use that to talk about branching too. So we'll come back and look at branching. But let me go to data analysis where we were, and I'll show you, this is what it would look like when you have responses. So it's going to kind of give you this weird summary. I don't think this part, I don't think is all that useful. Because there's a lot in there and it's not really helpful. But here's where you import and export data. So I'm not importing, but I can export right here, and it gives you all of these options. So you can export to a CSV file, comma separated values, which is importable by pretty much all software. The problem with that is it's not, a CSV will not keep the labels for survey responses, right? So you won't know what a 1 means if you do CSV. It can export it to Excel, which is super nice. The one that most people will probably use is SPSS. And this one will pull it with the wording for the question. That'll come in and it'll pull the value labels basically. So all the labels for everything, all of that will come down. So it'll do, that's probably your easiest one is SPSS. It's just to pull it in there. I use R for my data analysis and it reads SPSS data files. So super easy, but you can download in any of those formats at any point. And I was actually just playing with this morning because I've never used it. But if you want to do some really simple qualitative analysis, it actually has some of this built in. And this is Lauren, I think, is on here, right? Lauren, you could have actually used this when you were doing some of this analysis. This is the letters to nature, right? So we have that in our question here. It's showing all the responses. I actually just typed sorry right here, just because you had said, like a lot of people said sorry. I typed it and searched for all the responses that included the word sorry. And then I turned that into a topic. And now it'll actually show me all of those for me. So it's just like a super fast, dirty way to do qualitative analysis. It actually has that built in as well, which is kind of interesting. You can also do crosstabs in here. I almost never use this because I prefer R, but it'll actually allow you to take any one of your variables and just drop it in. So you can do really rudimentary cross tabulations in here as well. It's going to take forever to load our data. And if you ever needed to do weighting or raking, it has that functionality as well. Let's see. Okay, so I think one more thing. So this is the survey that we're using for the trekking project. You can see it has a bunch of blocks. So this one does have a whole bunch of blocks. Let me show you 2 things real quick with the blocks. You can always collapse those blocks so you can move them around a little bit easier. You can drag and drop the blocks in here, but it's better to actually do that over right here, survey flow. So when you have a lot of blocks, this is where you can actually move them pretty easily. So you just click on move and you can drag and drop those blocks. And you can also see that right here, this is some of the branching. So it's showing my branching logic in here. Based on whether somebody answered a question in this one, then they'll see this down here. So you can build in all of that branching. You don't necessarily have to do it here. You can actually do it on the survey page. So let's see, for this whole branch, it's got it in there, but the branching question is actually this one right here. So this one's got all of the survey logic built around that, but that's where it's all done. So there's a lot in there. We are at 45 minutes. I've talked a long time. Do people have questions? What questions do you have about Qualtrics?
Well, I have one question.
Yep.
When we are translating our national studies, would it be possible to use the sort of the English template, or so that we simply change the language to that template, or we have to start from the beginning?
No, you actually can do that. Let me see if I can remember where this is done. It's not in there. So it's not here. I think it's in.
There at the bottom, translation center.
There it is. Thank you. Yeah, that's where it is. Come on, go back. Here. So it actually does this pretty cool. Right here, here's the English version. You can add a language, and then you can just put the translation right next to it. So for the trekking survey, we're actually going to do translation options, but you could actually just build it right next to it and then give people the option when they go to take the survey. Do they want to take it in English? Do they want to take it in Finnish? That's what I'm going to do with Spanish and Portuguese. Because here in the US, we do have a sizable Spanish-speaking population. So we're translating it to Spanish anyway, because we're going to run it in Argentina. So once I get that translation, which I think Guada sent it last night, I'm going to go in, add the language, and then just put the translations right in next to it. So I can have them side by side. And then people can literally, when they go to take the survey, there will be a button at the beginning that says, what language do you want to take this in? And you can give them a drop down, and then it'll change the whole survey.
So, Ryan, when you add a language, does it do a Google Translate kind of thing? Or
I don't think it does.
Put in your own text?
Yeah, I think you have to put in your own text.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not going to automatically translate it for you.
So would it be possible, Ryan, that you would provide us the sort of the English version, and we simply work on that?
Yeah. Other questions on Qualtrics? Yeah. What's up?
When I translate it, so I'm probably doing the translation in Word. And then I'm wondering, because I don't know yet if we're gonna let people choose Norwegian or English here, or if we're just gonna. But then I could add language here, like you said.
Yeah, so you could do it this way, or you could actually just copy and paste your translation right over the top of the English, and then it's just a Norwegian survey.
Yeah, so if I have the English version in Qualtrics, then I can just, Yep,
you can just replace
maybe
it.
that's the easiest.
It might be easier, yeah.
Okay, then I guess we have to discuss if we're also going to let them choose English, but yeah.
I think English would be good to have as an option in Finland as well, because there are lots of people who may not have Finnish as their first language as well, and would like to perhaps answer in English.
Okay.